Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. And I know you've already unveiled the film a few weeks ago. How does it feel to have this piece of art in the world for people to enjoy?
Yeah, it feels really good. It's surreal a little bit because you work on something so long and then you see it come together and you never know if it's finished or not. And then when you see it finished, it feels really good and it makes you feel complete for sure.
Good. That's a good feeling. I'm glad you have that feeling. So a common thread among documentary filmmakers whom I speak to is the idea that the project you set out to make is often not the project that is the final product. And I would say this project represents that to an immense degree. So Paul, tell us, what was the project you intended to make? And certainly, if you can characterize how that shifted, as we see in the film, obviously we know how it shifted, but what was your intention with this piece?
I guess our intention in the beginning was just to capture the bands because they were, we all love the music. And I talked these guys in, I was like, just listen to the music, we've got to capture them. When we went into the studio to film them, we were all coming out of COVID and a lockdown.
It's a tough time for anyone trying to make anything.
Absolutely. And we were all, we discussed that. We were like, can we be together in a tight studio and not get sick? And, you know, what about Chadwick? He had diabetes and we had to think about those things.
Of course. And I'm glad you took those precautions.
Right.
It's very important.
But, you know, at that point, we went in and we were really, I was kind of thinking we were going to create maybe a 10-minute piece about the making of the album. And that's what it's going to be.
And your intention was to distribute this on YouTube and get fans engaged and push it out in social.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was what we did with the end in mind. And then what happened after, you know, it was heartbreaking, but there was a moment there when I had found out and I just had this flash in my head where I just saw a film. And at that point, I knew I had to make it.
And Zack and Jeremy were already on board at that point. So you were already sort of communally making this promotion piece, essentially. Okay. And Zack and Jeremy, when you were hired and agreed to make this film, I guess promotional piece, what were your inspirations in terms of look and feel? I think about a lot of the films that I love that are centered on musicians, whether it's the Metallica documentary, which I absolutely love, the Wilco doc, Give Me Shelter, some of the classics. Were there tonal references and even look and feel references that you were trying to, I guess, channel, even if it was just this, quote, promotional piece, because it still looks beautiful?
Yeah.
Anyone can start.
Paul sent us a lot of references for sure. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think the first thing we started was just watching them live and filming them live the first time.
Maybe hold the mic a little bit closer up.
Oh, sorry.
And that's okay. I just want to make sure to hear you.
We definitely experienced them live a few times before we got into this. Like, we'd already filmed a couple music videos with the guys, and there was already kind of a chemistry and understanding of what they do live. And that was
what is distinct to you about what they did live that made this, or I guess give it a different flavor? Because this band is not like other bands.
100% pure connection. Like, they just reached out and connected with every single person in the audience.
Chadwick's energy on stage.
Okay, so as a frontman, you felt like he had something very unique.
For sure.
Okay. And do you think that was something that was easily translated to the screen? Because it's hard, you know, when you're around a magnetic person like that, it's hard to really bring that to the screen, even though you feel it in the room. How were you trying to I guess, channel that in terms of his performance?
So in the studio for me, I did a lot of handheld, really getting the camera up in his face. If you notice that, very, very raw, because I felt like that's what most accurately captured what I was feeling at the time.
The intimacy.
Being there, the intimacy, exactly.
And he's obviously a showman, but were there moments where he felt like, God, I don't know if I deserve this kind of treatment? Because he's a very humble man, obviously. But did you have to talk him into just be yourself, let us gather this footage of you?
I think it took 2 years of filming the band in intimate settings.
That's a long time.
Yeah. So we were up in the rehearsal rooms. We were at the studio. We were filming them in all kinds of settings, and they got so used to us being there that they were able to just let go.
How long did that take for them to feel as comfortable where you're a fly on the wall and they could just do their thing without thinking, oh boy, Paul's watching?
I think when we rolled into the studio, they were very comfortable because at that point they were just used to us being there, and we were kind of looked at as like part of the band.
Okay, that's the ultimate compliment, right? Now, was anything off limits? Were there any boundaries that were set early on? It's like, you can capture this, but we really don't want to do that. We really don't want you to maybe go on the sort of personal life stuff.
No, I mean, I think we were really capturing a band. We all loved Chadwick, and he stood out, but we weren't capturing Chadwick's story. We were capturing a
You
band.
didn't know you were capturing his story at that point.
Right. And I had a personal relationship with Chadwick, but we all loved him very much. And I think it was just a moment of time where we didn't know what was going to happen. You know, it's kind of like the quote that we put at the very top of the film. Our executive producer, Susie Batiste, told me right before we finished it, she said, you need to sum it up. You need to tell people what it really means, this film, why you did it, and what the message is. And the message to me was, don't wait for tomorrow. Like, it may never come. So if you're an artist and a creator, you've got to really put yourself into it, and just don't waste your time here.
And how do you think Chadwick saw himself in terms of the scope of your film? Was he a humble guy and sort of like, no, I don't want this to be about me? How did he navigate that? Because anyone I've spoken to has had their life documented. This is not a natural experience.
Well, I knew him really well, but I think Chadwick was just very grateful and humble for the moment. He was always the guy who held the rhythm section down in the band. And there's something to be said about a rhythm section. But, when you have a band, it's much different than just having an artist who paints a painting, like my mother.
Where is your mother, by the way?
She's right over here.
Thanks, Mom.
Thank you, Mom.
You must be very proud.
She's an
Yes,
incredible artist.
She's nodding.
Yeah, when you paint something and you really get into it, you're expressing yourself. But there's something that crosses over when you're in a band. And that's when collaboration happens. Right. And there's struggle. You saw struggle in the film. Chadwick didn't know if he wanted to sing the song a certain way that Chad wanted him to sing. And, there was this push and pull. But, when those people paint their layers of creativity on top of it, you get something in the end that's not completely you. It's something special that comes together. And I think, to me, that was the collaboration on this film with these two filmmakers here. These two guys right here, we all put our touch on it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It feels like a very ego-free piece, which I think we can all agree is quite a stunning achievement when you're dealing with creative people, documenting a band, also working together. This is hard. This is really hard work. What do you think lent itself most to that vibe being created in the studio, but also after hours as you're going through the footage, you're starting to edit? Who set the tone for that vibe, I guess?
I don't know. All the blurry shots were my shot.
Was that you trying to be an artiste?
I was trying to be an artiste.
I see. Okay.
I was holding the camera, but I mean, these guys are amazing. They've taught me how to film. So I would just say that you tell them, Zack.
I think we just had a shared goal of what we wanted to do. So, it wasn't about what any one person was contributing themselves.
Yeah.
It was just trying to make the best thing we could. And that started in the studio before we even knew that this was going to be a feature-length film, right?
And Jeremy, I'm curious, with other pieces you've worked on or just other work in general, how important is it to you to be a fan of the artist? Because I think I could see pros and cons to both, right? If you feel a sort of subjective love for your subject, that can be a little tricky, but you also have to care. So tell me how that sort of informs your process.
Yeah, I would definitely, with especially Bastard specifically, there was definitely a connection to their music from the word go, that upped the enthusiasm, which made me want to get involved even more and just consistently show up and be there with the camera in the hand, ready to shoot whatever they did. And it was just such a privilege to be in the room with creatives in general. And just they allowed us the access to watch them create and record.
What surprised you about watching that process? Because watching artists make something can often be quite boring. I've been on many sets of TV and film shoots. My God, it's painstaking. It really is a miracle that anything gets made. And similarly with making an album. What did you learn about the creative process of watching the band make its album?
Yeah, I mean, I've been around music a lot, so it was not a new process for me specifically. I just wanted to kind of capture as much footage as possible because everyone in the room knew something special was happening, and it was evident from the music. And I think all of us just kind of wanted to capture every possible shot we could.
I love that. So let's go to September 2021 and tragic events of that time period, losing Chadwick. What do you remember feeling first after the shock, after that onset of grief, wondering how can we go on? And I'm assuming, should we go on? So Paul, tell me about that process for you.
I think it was very cloudy for me. I didn't think that I felt the loss that I felt was I had all this incredible footage and the story ended. And I didn't know how to finish it. Every time I watched it, it was too painful. It's still too painful. But,
Understandable. Yeah.
But I think, eventually I let go. I let Zack dig into it. Jeremy and I, we spoke about the process, and we thought Zack was, he's an incredible editor. He's really brought it to life. You cannot create an incredible film without an incredible editor. You just can't. You can
That
shoot
is
the
very
best
true.
thing. But he spent a lot of time really just going through it. And I remember one day I was working and he called me and he said, I think we have a story. We have a story here. And then it all started to come together.
And what was the story that you felt watching the footage? What was something that emerged for you that you didn't realize you had?
I think it was at its core this story of, so when we went into the studio with them, we thought this was their first studio session back to
Right.
normal, right? And what it ended up being was their last studio session together.
Those are two very different
Very,
things
very
to shoot,
different.
right? And
So-
almost had you known it was the last, your approach would have been different. The camera work would have been different. Everything would have been different.
Right. But what was interesting about it was the way Chadwick speaks in the film is he's talking about how everything is coming together in his life, how everything is happening in this
It
moment.
feels very hopeful, very grateful.
Yes. And it was just a really interesting moment to capture, I thought, where he was on the precipice of much more, but he found the love of his life. He was married. He was the front man of this band. Everything was coming
Expecting
together.
his first child.
Expecting his first child. These things that he wanted. So he did reach those things. And so I just saw this story of all that coming together before that tragic loss.
It's sort of like all the struggle that takes place and then all the hopes and dreams coalescing at once.
Mhm.
That's how I felt watching it, which I think is beautiful. And we all know, any of us who's tried to do anything, the minute you feel like, oh my God, I'm doing the thing that I always dreamed of, that's what I felt watching the movie.
Exactly.
And I think you captured that very beautifully. Generally speaking, I know it's probably hard to sum this up in basic English, but what does this project mean to you, and what are you most proud of, Paul?
I guess I'm most proud of. That's a heavy question.
I know, that's why I asked it. I'm putting you
This
to the
question was
test.
not given to me before. to
That's
think
the
about.
idea, yes. I know you're very equipped to answer it, though.
I believe that this project, if you sum it up, is a beautiful story that anybody could relate to, especially an artist. And I love telling those stories. When we decided to do the documentary, I really realized that the style that I would like to do, and that's why I decided to start 737 Films, was to really tell those artist stories, fly on the wall, unscripted.
Maybe artists who otherwise wouldn't have their stories captured.
Exactly, yeah.
But I think there's
the voice of
sense
the underdog a little
right,
bit.
and
Yeah.
whose story deserves to be shared
Right.
and told, and I think that's what equalizes that with this film. Agree. And gentlemen, what are you proudest of when you see the film? I'm sure it's painful to watch because it's also hard to watch work you've toiled over for many years and footage you have seen probably countless times. But when you watch this, what sticks out as something that you just will take with you to the next project as a win?
Yeah, just kind of, I think one of my favorite lines was didn't Rick Rubin, Matt Pence, when he said that these moments are important to immortalize. The recording process doesn't matter. And I think the prioritization of the arts is always something that is a kind of undercurrent of my own personal life. And that's what I definitely connected with when he said it.
Lovely. So before we close, I do want to acknowledge there are some special guests in the room tonight. Chadwick's wife, Hannah, is here. Hannah, can you please stand up or just let us acknowledge you? Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you, Anna.
Thank you for sharing your story. And this room is filled with love for you. And we just want to say thank you. And the legacy is intact. And we're so happy that this story has been told. So appreciate your honesty and openness. Is there anyone else you want to give a shout out to as long as you have the mic?
I mean, all of you here, thank you for taking your time and watching this film. My team, I really appreciate everybody. Elizabeth over there on her phone, like working away, and Henry over there.
A lot of people go into making
Bob and
anything.
Sean, and yeah, there's all kinds of people in here that have helped me, and I really appreciate it. I do have two friends over here, JB, sitting next to Michael.
JB, where are you? There he is in the hat.
These two guys, the first film I ever really worked on ever, and I had a very small role, was Before the Music Dies. It was a film that premiered here in Austin. So I feel coming 20 years later back to premiere my first documentary. It's full circle.
This feels meant to be.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank you for being here and sharing your film with us. Congratulations. The beautiful legacy and testament to Chadwick and the band. And thank you for taking the time. And I know this isn't easy to do this, but we really appreciate you being here. Thank you. Thank you so much. So,